and all of that.
Mic
Do you
check.
think
Hello.
that the youth are able to access
at the table so that we are guarding our curriculum frameworks, even when they're international, and making sure that our African cultures and concepts and contexts are included. So in Kenya here, you will not run an international curriculum if you're not teaching the local history. So you start from the known to unknown. Before you speak about Florence Nightingale and her works, at the table so that we are guarding our curriculum frameworks, even when they're international, and making sure that our African cultures and
William Hugh MacDonald, born 1818, Scotland. Now, there was only one person out of his whole family that just got the epiphany, ooh, I'm going to come to Jamaica. So I tested not him, but his great-great-great-grandnephew, Hugh MacDonald in the UK. And when I tested him, he's an R. But the brothers, that's the old guy, William Hugh, and his brother, Reverend Hugh, they don't look alike. But they're R's, and when I looked at the numbers and crunched the numbers in a private DNA lab, they don't match other McDonald's. Out of 650, you have maybe 2 matches. I'm like, you can't be a McDonald. And then you dare tell me I'm a haplogroup E and I must go back to Africa because I am not a McDonald either. So if you're not a McDonald and you're the oldest McDonald, then who's a McDonald? Someone who fell from the sky? So they make it up as they go along. Completely make it up. And I've caught them time and time again. I don't have to be a scientist. I'm a lawyer, PhD, scholar, accountant. But when I look at it, we have to be proud of our ancestors. The children who left Africa 1,000 years ago are these people. And who we have today are kind of visitors of Europe. And there you say you're colonizers. When it's these people who carved up Africa. Now, this is again is my dad's, this is Jamaica. And if you quickly note, there are places called Fort William. There's Scottish names. These are all my, this is a map I had to get in Jamaica from Scotland. I went to Scotland and I got it. So when you look at it, there's no Kingston. Every bit of this map, this is where I found black McDonald's. I actually found black McDonald's. My oldest McDonald cousin, his name is DaCosta McDonald from Trinidad. He's 108, and he is a confirmed black man. And he is a haplogroup E, like Mr. Mandela. So the E, sub-Saharan, what is 108? And you know what his dad was called? His dad was called William. And I know a lot of times in Africa say, no, get rid of the names. Well, if I happen to have a name, this is a 108-year-old man telling me his dad was William, and his grandfather, who has a photo of, is John William, born in 1840, from Scotland. And we are cousins. On this map, every place you see here, I found black McDonald's. And I surveyed some white McDonald's, the R group, and you know what I found? 0 matches, 1 match out of 600, 2 matches out of 1,000. Those aren't great batting numbers. You're betting people, you're not going to do much with those numbers. So I just wanted to again present to you that we need to revisit our history in order to grow. Africa is still in chains. We can have the best discourses about what Africa needs to do. You work harder. I remember this movie, Coming to America, and this McDowell was talking to Eddie Murphy, the Prince. Well, you know what? This is my house. In 20, 30, 50 years, if you work hard, you'll get one like this. And see, that is what they're telling Africa every day. If you work harder with what you have, there's 57 million millionaires in the world. And guess how much black? Like 2%. And there are 3,000 billionaires. How much black? Like 0.5%, including Oprah. So you have a stripping out from, you see this, you have a stripping out of Europe and the wealth transfer from Europe that has just gone into different hands. I got this from the Inequality Report, 2026. And it pains my heart because the wealth of the world is not in. It's Africa, it has wealth, but we don't have access. You imagine going to Alabama and telling a man that he doesn't own his land, he doesn't own the air rights or the ground rights, you'll probably get shot. And in Africa, you have people telling Africans, no, this is not for you, no. And they have countries with their grubby hands in Africa. I don't understand, because nowhere else. You could go to Netherlands, you could go to France, you could go to Germany, and you will get locked up. And in Africa, you have people dictating to Africa. You have actually not trillions, but quadrillions. You have quadrillions. But the banks are feeble. Standard Bank, the banks are undercapitalized. And for a reason, the leaders do nothing. They don't tell you about this information. And I have to be the one to even say that. Say with pride and pleasure, but we need to revisit our sources. Now, you saw the Moorish quadrille. I'd like to go back to the painting, please, the Moorish quadrille. And you see that painting, and the one that is opposed to it now is the Bayeux Tapestry in France. Now, the Bayeux is a France showing the Norman conquest in 1066, the glorious conquest of France and Britain. And they're all white people. Now, the population then would be what? 200 million, 300 million? And the Bayeux Tapestry in France made a lot of money from showing what people looked like in old Britain and in France. I called them, and now they're closed for 2 years. They're completely closed for 2 years. I called them about 3 times. They just didn't want to deal with me. But the museum is closed. But this is something that you could take a picture of, you can research for yourselves, and you can test your primary sources. And I've been doing that. From DNA, from records, like the Bayeux Tapestry, which is a fraud. That's the biggest toilet paper in the world. It's like a mile long of toilet paper, the Bayeux Tapestry, to show white Britons and white Normans fighting in a fictitious 1066 war. 1066 was not real. That was probably the battle between Rome and Britain. That was a real war. Remember the repelling of the Picts? The Picts that they said were painted people? Well, they were black people too. Now, how do I know about the Romans? The Romans, they have an exhibit in Wales today. Go to Cardiff, Wales. And Jesus. So Jesus is not white, but he's kind of light skinned. So when I went to North Africa, they told me, no, you remind me like our ancestors. You're a Berber blue man. Blue as in the Picts, bluish. So you're blue. And they said to me, we examine ourselves. And oh yeah, I went in August. It was hot, 110. I didn't need sunscreen, I didn't need glasses, I didn't need hat, and they were burning up. And they had to finish the tour by 11 a.m. And they even have a thing like in south of France and stuff, they blow water into the crowd. You ever see that? You ever gone to Italy and stuff in Greece and they blow the water into the crowd? Brown, black people don't need that. Europeans are not truly European. North Africans are not really North Africans. And so we need, in this leadership conference where we need to lead and demonstrate leadership and expose and show something new, well, it's time to wake up. And if you need more information, there's GTR. I have a running TV show every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. Nigerian time, or 10 p.m. here, 10 p.m. here in Kenya. And so in this conference, we're demonstrating leadership and service. So what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to sit on it? Are you going to press? And what are you going to do with this information? That's the thing, just to the audience. I think we need to re-examine our history and reclaim our history, because it's our God-given right, it's our birthright. Those in the 6th region, including myself, we are European. We are also something else. We're not just African. I'm proud to be African, but we're also something else. So with that message, I will close. Sorry for taking longer than anticipated. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
A big round of applause for that wonderful class on history, biology, war, and geography all together. UN OPS East and Southern Africa, UN OPS East and Southern Africa, a big hand to him. Closely followed by Manish Shah, who is the chairperson of the Earth Keepers Foundation, big hand to him. And last but not least, Senisha Munsami and from Impact Amplifier. A big hand to the panel. If someone could please help me remove this from the stage. Great, welcome all. And I want us to start with a quick round of introduction, and I'll start from my extreme left. Briefly introduce yourself in 1 minute and your intersection between environment and sustainability. Over to you.
You'd like me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the platform and the invitation. I'm very, very excited to be here this afternoon. So, as you mentioned, my name is Farah Ismail. I'm managing partner at Boyden. We're an executive search firm, and we work in the board advisory space. But why am I here today? I've been in the corporate governance space for about 20 years. I have an environmental science background, an MBA with a sustainable strategy aspect, and I'm also a corporate lawyer. So the interface really of ESG. And this has been an area dear to my heart. About 20 years ago, we talked about this, and we're still talking about ESG, sustainability. So we haven't come very far. And I really came back to Kenya to work in the space, worked internationally, returned to Kenya. And I spend most of my time in the G, so the G of the ESG, but I also spend time in the S, working with employees and working now in the wellness space as well. So, I think we're going to have some more discussions, and I can provide some insight from where I sit in the leadership, governance, and social impact space. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Reina?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rainer. Why am I here? So I work for an organization, part of the United Nations system called UNOPS, the Office for Project Services, which is a mechanism for developing infrastructure, providing public procurement and project management services to support the Sustainable Development Goal agenda, which is a global agenda mediated through national development plans. And that's our entry point for then working in countries across the continent to support environmental objectives and sustainability objectives that are linked into every form of development activity. And I'm Austrian, so I'm a very, very grateful visitor to Africa and Kenya, and have enjoyed my 13 years in the country here now, and look forward to continuing to contribute to the development agenda in Africa. And then we can expand on the elements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manisha.
Thank you and good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Dr. Manish Shah, Chairman of Earthkeepers Foundation. The foundation was created by our group to put ESG into action. ESG, when all the notes are taken for a bankable project, remain in the shelves of a company. I've turned that into action, and I hope some of the sharing that I could do this afternoon would benefit and enhance more sustainability for every corporate in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanisha Munsami. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm all the way from South Africa with meeting all the Kenyan people and all the people from all over, including the panel. I'm very excited to be part of this panel. I work for an organization called Impact Amplifier. We are an impact investing company, and we are the second executing entity for UNIDO, currently supporting young innovators and entrepreneurs and looking at how we can raise a debt fund of 150 million rand annually. And I'm very excited to say that this conversation is about inbound technology and how as Africans for Africa and the Global South partners can come together to really deploy really good clean tech solutions across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And most often when we discuss about the environment, we discuss it as a sector. And we know that Mandela understood it as a responsibility. And sustainability for us is not sitting here in conferences, in a summit, making commitments or just climate language. It's about intergenerational leadership. We saw that in the first panel. And it's about what we choose to protect, what we choose to exploit, and what are we prepared to sacrifice, and at what price for those who will never vote for us, fund for us, those who are funding, or even praise us. And Africa contributes least to global environmental degradation, yet we bear some of the heaviest consequences. And that reality gives us a moral authority, but it also places us on a higher leadership obligation to pursue development that is just, resilient, and sovereign. So this conversation is not whether sustainability matters. I think we've made that clear. And it's about how leaders can make hard choices when growth, jobs, energy, and environmental protection all collide. Those are chaos. And so our role today with this panel and with this audience, we are trying to move beyond declarations and go into leadership decisions. The kind that Mandela believed that define generations, not just news cycles. And I'll start with you, Farah. We've been taught by Mandela that leadership is a responsibility to the future. What do you think is the hardest environmental decision that leaders today in Africa must make, even if it is politically inconvenient?
So your question is about what's the hardest environmental decision. I'll take it back actually to a larger leadership issue. Like I see this as we're in an age of conscious leadership now. You know, Mandela talked about thinking about the future, you know, be courageous in decision making, moving away from extraction to actually working, you know, on a way that we can maintain our resources. So I think I pull it away a bit into it's about consciousness. So, and it's consciousness to what is in your sector, for your company, for where you operate. But it's no one environmental issue is the same for everyone, so it's not something you pull off the shelf. And that's why I also bring it back to governance. This has to be a key in the boardroom, in where the C-level are making decisions. We really need to be thinking about this as part and parcel of strategy. And it has to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And that's why, working with boards, making sure that they're considering governance, sustainability, social impact in the boardroom in all decisions, and actually having governance and ESG as one of the committees that most organizations should have, to make a conscious effort to think about this, so that when it comes to making a decision around environment, you've actually already thought about it. You've thought about it as part and parcel of your strategy.
You bring on science here, and I want to bring in Manisha, putting everything at the heart of ESG. Most of the time, Africa is told to choose between development and sustainability. So from where you sit, what do you think are some of the false trade-offs that our leaders have sort of gotten by with? And, how can we claw back on that time?
Thank you. Responsible leadership is what is missing, and we all know that Africa needs responsible leadership. If you, for a moment, envision the great soul speaking to us and saying, leave this world in a better place than you found it. Leave this environment that you are in a better place than you found it. And where does it begin? It does not begin in boardrooms. It does not begin with everyone taking action. It begins with the thoughts. And that thought that the great soul has left behind in Africa is to leave this world, to leave Africa in a better place than we found it.
And I think it's clear, if trade-offs were technical, then it would be very easy to dissolve. And what is in reality, environmental outcomes are really shaped by power, incentives, and interest. And I want to jump to you, Sanisha, and I want to look at it from a point of environmental degradation is rarely accidental. And I want us to address the people who are currently, let's first of all define the people who are currently benefiting from it. And what's our message to them? Because it's not accidental. It's about power, it's about interest, it's about incentives. What's our key message to those people who are benefiting from it?
So I would like to just go into speak about inclusivity, and I think inclusivity is very important. As young African leaders that actually are going to be faced with the challenges, like you said, in terms of water scarcity, the energy crisis, as well as waste management. The people that are benefiting generally are your political leaders and people sitting on the other side of the fence. And what we are trying to do is achieve a fund that will drive inclusivity for young females and Africans that would really leapfrog their solutions that could be deployed into the continent. And I think for us, we're not short of very good innovations or technologies. It's just about getting the right funds out there. And that's why I said it's very important that we drive strong public-private partnerships, meaning that government has to come together with industry to create the fund that will be deployed that can benefit all. And I think that's the key message that I would like to bring home, that we're not short of good innovations that could be scaled up.
Thank you. And Reina, I want to come to you, given the global presence that the UN has, and looking at it, that some of these environmental decisions are made locally. I would like to see you talk to some of the changes that need to happen at the grassroots level, at the subnational levels, in terms of leadership, so they can be at the front line of sustainability. Your microphone is barely sustained.
I have a microphone problem. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think there are very different elements in all the answers about leadership, and I just would like to add one or two components. One, I think, in terms of responsible leadership, is the long view we need to take, especially when it comes to environment and sustainability. And the sort of balancing between economic development and safeguards that need to be put into the investments and implementation that are required to put in place the infrastructure and enabling environment. And that then links us back to the whole conversation about international frameworks and standards that the UN, the United, I don't work for a standards organization, I work for an implementation organization, but I think the whole notion of multilateralism and recognition of international linkages and climate not ending at the border is extremely important. And then the sort of, it's not necessarily a hierarchy, but the representational mechanisms that take us back right to communities, because that's where the impact is felt hardest and that's where decisions need to be taken. So I'm a very strong believer in the empowerment of municipalities and municipality leaders, but they then need to have access to resources. And that becomes also the conversation we're having about what funds and what funding is available to address issues that play out at the community level. And the organization I work for is an enabling mechanism for allocation of resources, partially in the environment place. So there is a climate fund that is specifically dedicated for communities that are worst affected by climate change. And so I think the focus on municipality, and then coming back to our colleague in the morning, the youth representation, I think, is also extremely important, because who is taking decisions right now may not be the people who have to take them in the long run. So again, bring on board the young generation and find through education, through empowerment mechanisms for their participation and active input. There's more to say, but I stop. Thank you.
Sanisha, you brought in the issue of inclusivity, and I think from where you sit, the panel that I have here, you have one practical example of sort of best practices that are happening on the continent. Remember, we are here to call on. We are not here to duplicate. We are here to, sort of do a bit of skills transfer. And I want to go around that entire panel to get some of the best practices that you've seen that can make us inch closer to sustainability while still protecting our environment.
Okay. So thank you for that. And I think, like I said, the Africa Clean Tech Impact Fund that we currently set up in South Africa, it's funded through UNIDO, as well as the Jobs Fund in South Africa, as well as we're looking for other partners. And I think for me, that just shows that if we have really good technology innovation agencies, like the one in Kenya and across the continent, it's how do we link into those agencies, look at what are some really good technology and innovations that could be deployed through the startup ecosystem that exists across the continent. And we've seen it happen. I've worked very closely across a number of African countries, as well as the Global North partners, like UNIDO. We can't thank them enough, but I think for us, it is practical, it is real. We have set up the fund. We are looking to partner with really good Kenyan innovations that could come out of your Kenya Innovation Agency, as well as others to deploy it. So I think for me, that's really a good example that we don't have to replicate, but rather just duplicate it and go forward.
I think the Kenyans in the room, we've great collaborations going on between South Africa and our very own Kenya National Innovation Agency. A big hand to that. That's how we start collaborations. Dr. Shah.
Thank you, sir. I'll talk from the corporate point of view.
Please do.
And everyone in this room would have the answer. Our corporate started services with electric cars, probably the first one in Africa. But I want to ask you a question. which person in this room would pay double the price for an electric car ride to the airport than a normal petrol diesel car? The answer is none. Can anyone put your hand up if you do that? And you can see where corporate responsibility in terms of ESG practice comes in with zero positive results. And we continue the possibility and thinking that the world is going to come and help us. And the kind of funding that you talked about is very, very important, that has been created through various UN agencies, but it's got to reach the ground level. Second thing, our corporate has created green teams across the entire management level, where they practice and they are entrusted and empowered. It is not us who sit in boardrooms that do that. If someone wants to change the bottles from plastic into glass, they make that decision. If someone wants to ensure that we don't have plastic waste at the bottom level of the pyramid, is utmost important when you make your green teams. So other things that the corporates have done is, of course, energy replacement with solar, waste disposal correctly through incineration plants. One of our group companies sells tires, and there is 1 million cars in Kenya on the roads, producing 4 million tires a year as waste rubber products. Our company took the possibility of converting that waste old tires into pyrolysis, and the products from pyrolysis are then sold into the market space. So from a corporate point of view, it's not profitable. And the final word, all the governments in Africa need to give real incentives for ESG adoption, not just talk.
Thank you very much. And I know you want to jump in, Rama. And I want you to, as you jump in onto that, I also want to directly ask you, as even you sit with the boards, are we just ticking a box here, or are we committed to doing this?
So thank you for that. And I wanted to follow up from Manish. So it is interesting because I sit at the board level, but of course it has to be bottom up and top down and government entry as well. So this is a multi-layered issue. And how many of us have actually done our own footprint? You know, you can actually go online and see what is my environmental footprint individually. And actually mine is quite terrible, and I'm constantly trying to see how I can do things. So this is something that we need to do at an individual level, and that's why I said it's about consciousness at the individual level, at the corporate level, and also governments coming in as well. But it's not just a government issue. I mean, this is... So in terms of, you know, corporate governance, and I think since this is the field I work in, that's exactly the problem. It has been a checkoff, and that's how corporate governance has always been seen. And that is a problem because there is a move towards actually having governance that works for you, that adds value. We need high performance directors. And maybe, you know, having all boards to actually have somebody who represents ESG. I mean, that could be a novel concept. But maybe all listed companies, that could be something that comes down from the Capital Markets Authority. But I've been in the rooms where we make changes on the legislation, for instance. That's why I'm saying the solution is not just government, because these changes happen slowly. Just to have the change to have terms for board directors has been very difficult to do at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So, you know, the whole notion between changing your directors so that after 6 years you no longer are director, so that you can bring fresh ideas. So ESG, sustainability, these are not fresh ideas. Like I said, I was doing this 20 years ago, working in this space. But it's now about bringing them to the table in a way that's not a checkoff. And so I think that's exactly the problem. And that's why I say it does need to be in the boardroom. That's where the strategies are set. And it has to come with a price of non-compliance. And so, yeah, I want it not to be just a checkoff. I guess that's the thing.
Absolutely. Reina, and I'm coming to the ground now to pick up some questions from the floor.
Just one add-on here. I think in terms of the governance, and we are not dealing with boardrooms as much, but we are sort of a global organization, and I'm sure many have heard the greening the blue, where we have the blue UN, and we are trying to become much greener, and that gets mediated through an organization like ours that holds significant funds and administers significant funds that get dedicated to a number of different initiatives, but all of those are guided by environmental principles and economic and environmental and social safeguards protocols. And then there's, of course, an element of leadership in the organization to make that work better or worse. And then a very strong set of commitments to localization, and then looking at supply chains, right? So that we, as a procurement organization, we work with governments to supply a combination of goods and services, and especially when it comes to goods, but also services. But for goods, it's easier to understand. A very, very strong focus on understanding the footprint of everything that comes into the system, and how we source, how we understand supply chains, and then also the social aspect is to look at opportunities for localization, local opportunities, and then gender plays into this, et cetera, right? So there's a very strong commitment to implementing this through a strictly regulated set of protocols. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll allow some questions from the floor. Just shoot up your hand. Yes, please. I can see a hand here. One. Can I see another one? Yes, I can see another one there. Let's start with the gentleman in the green suit. He actually told us in the morning that he has hosted the Mandela Summit before. Microphones, please. Just keep your question very short and straight to the point.
Okay, thank you. You know, the gods even respect the questioning minds. So my question goes to Mr. Reina. Mr. Reina, from your position and experience leading the UN OPS projects in Kenya, how can UN leadership ensure that humanitarian and development projects move beyond delivery?
And then the lady in gray.
Thank
yes.
you. My name is Barbara, and I'm from an organization known as Wildlife Clubs of Kenya. So we mostly deal with conservation education among school-going children. So the question I want to ask is, how can a conservation education, such as the one I work for, Wildlife Clubs of Kenya, leverage on ESG to transform a mission-driven organization into a data-backed, funded, ready strategic partner? So I would like for the